Hi, I'm Terry Ammerman. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Mark Ammerman, who is the Managing Director and Head of the U.S. Energy Practice for Scotiabank in Houston. This is the first in our series of executive Christians and how they are applying their Christian faith in the workplace. I'm particularly delighted to interview Mark because not only is he a very successful man in the business world in Houston, but he's also my brother. I am looking forward to getting some answers from him on some particularly tough questions about how we live out our faith in the workplace. Mark, do the people in your workplace know that you're a Christian?
Oh, yeah.
And when they know that, what is it that they see that helps them to know that?
Well, I'm the head of the office. We have 6 or 7 different business groups there and probably 120 people in the office. And like a lot of businesses, we have people that have come from, people have moved in from New York, from Toronto, from the East Coast, West Coast, and they all do business differently than a lot of us do here in Texas. The language that they sling around, how they have relationships with other people in the office, how they deal with women or minorities or people that are different than them, are very, very different. And so, fortunately, I think God gives us, the scriptures demonstrate over and over again how we're supposed to treat other people and be respectful of other people. And some of these people, what actually might just be a good business practice on the bank's part, telling them you can't talk to this person or treat this person that way, is just as much coming from my faith upbringing and what the scripture has taught us about how we deal people. And some of the people will choose to look at that and say, you're just doing that to me because you're a Christian and you're hitting me over the head with the Bible. When instead, it really is written right here on the bank's policies and procedures of how you deal with people. So one of the things that's been real interesting being in my position is how many times I have to listen to people who've complained to the HR department that my faith is imposing on them, when really all we're doing is exhibiting good business principles about how people should be treated amongst each other. So
you actually have had some people say, oh, that's because you're a Christian.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think that people in the business world, or have you experienced this, do you think they have a preconceived, perhaps stereotypical view of the way a Christian operates?
Sure they do. Television, I think, helps them do that. They think of someone carrying around a Bible, whacking people over the head, holding it up every time, there's an argument. I know how to get the answer to this, that type of thing.
Have there been situations where you have worked with believers where you may have been disappointed in the way they were coming across? What do you think is one of the situations that we may find ourselves in as...
I frankly am more worried about that for myself than I am about other people. One of the things I've enjoyed about becoming 50 years old is being able to look back and realize how I need to be less judgmental of some other people. Because as the weeks go by and I'm just tested more and more and more about different things, and I realize how many times other people could take things that I do and think that I'm being wrong about it or I'm not living out my example. When I know, because of what I know, because of what I know about a certain situation or background that they have no way of knowing, that I'm trying to do the thing, dealing with an employee that has a personal problem at home, someone that might be alcoholic, someone that might have a sex addiction. And this is the real world, though. And how I deal with that or deal with different people, whether I cut them slack or land all over them or try to guide them, anyone could look at those situations not knowing what I know of everything that's happening and call into question how I'm doing it. And I've had to really ask myself now to stop doing that to other people and just really realizing that what I see on the surface may actually have absolutely nothing to do with what the reality is.
Have you been asked to do something in the workplace at any time in your career that you felt was a direct violation of your Christian values? And if that's the case, how did you wind up handling that?
I'm sorry. That's a question that's very valid. I thought about it coming here today. I speak on ethics a lot in public forums. I have to confess that I have to work for one of the companies in the world that I've never really been challenged that way.
That's good to know.
Honestly. And when I speak, I frequently have people in the audience raise their hands and say, yeah, but that's not my company. I'm asked to do these type of things all the time. And then what would you do? And then, we try to work out together, what maybe their situation is, which oftentimes is not a lot of good options for them. I have never been asked to do something that I can recall. When I've been presented with a set of decisions, yes, there have been times that someone would argue and say, take this path. I didn't think it was the right one. What I've always found is when I went back and said I wanted to go this direction and I felt this was the right way and this was the wrong way, I've always been supported in that. I can't name one time I haven't.
And you bring up something that I wanted to talk about a little bit. You've actually traveled to other countries talking about being a Christian, living out your faith in the workplace. And I know Germany is one place that you've gone. Tell me a little bit about what that's like and what you're seeing people in other countries facing.
The Europeans, first of all, they're just shocked that a guy at my level in the company that I'm at goes to church. And they say so quite openly. They just can't believe it. I went over one time with a delegation of two of my friends, one who was a very senior partner in one of the largest consulting firms, international consulting firms, it's well known. Another one who had just sold a company to one of the big Wall Street firms for $2.5 billion. And just in the course of the conversation, when I mentioned that, introducing these men and that we were friends and that we knew each other from church and worked together, several people came up to me afterwards and said, you run the big energy division of this bank, and this guy just sold a company for $2.5 billion, and that guy over there is the head of an international consulting firm, and you guys have time to go to church? We don't believe you. When I talked with people about sharing my faith in the office or how I do so, things like that, clearly they were in shock. There was no doubt in my mind that they felt that if they were to take any kind of step like I had just told them that would be reasonably routine for me in my office, that they probably would be fired or sent away. And I think that's just a shame. And what I've tried to use these times to teach them is that there's a lot of different ways you can do it, that, it's not like TV, somebody waving a Bible in the air, in front of the office and saying we're doing the right thing, but it's personal, it's one-on-one talks, helping them work through the problems maybe in a constructive way because they've never been trained. They don't know. They sit in church and they listen to preaching, but another business person has never really sat down and helped them think through the steps of what they need to do or how they can approach it.
That brings up an interesting point. Do you think that young Christians who are going into the business world need specific guidance, specific discipleship in how to live out their faith in the business world? Or is it just all one, live out your faith in life, and it all just kind of falls into place?
No, I think they absolutely do. I look back at the benefit that I got and where it's taken me and where it's provided for me. I belong to an international group that is ministry related, that is working on the college campuses and also working now with the graduates from the college campus, picking them up after they get out of school, the 24 to 30-year-old range, so to speak. And this ministry was largely started on the back of experiences that were going on in Houston. We had a number of large firms here, particularly the most well-known one was the Enron firm, where young guys and girls were getting out of school at 24 years old and within 2 years making bonuses that were approaching $1 million in some case. And we began to notice the first week of January them coming back from their Christmas break, driving new Ferraris and things like that. Having that type of wealth and that type of culture thrown upon them, right in the beginning, we realized, those of us who were senior business leaders, that it was ruining the youth that were beneath us, that were going to be rising at one point and taking our positions when we left. And we wanted to do something about that. We wanted to start to, A, attract people to the Christian faith, and B, for the ones that were there to support them. And to support them by having Bible studies or discipleship meetings or having mentorship opportunities with other believers who they could invest some time with and get some guidance and leadership from. And I'm just amazed. I go to these groups myself, and I speak at some of these groups, and I'm always amazed when I see some other business leaders there who I know who are, to me, people that I look up to very strongly, and I'll talk about something I'm dealing with or an example that I've had, and I'll see them grab their pens in their book, and they'll just start scribbling notes furiously. And then after we're done, we're talking about it, and I realize they were dealing with the same thing, and they've never come to an answer. And then they heard my answer, and they're like, "Wow!" And they, so we, the iron sharpens iron, as the scripture says, and we all sharpen each other in these things as we're around. Without that, it would be very easy just to be carved off, put in a corner, and not survive it.
Have you had opportunities to actually minister to people in the workplace, your colleagues or other people in the business world?
All the
do
time.
people seek you out because they know you're a Christian, or you just have a demeanor about you that gives them a sense that you give good advice?
I can't say that people really seek out. I really think that the climate in a large office like where I am right now, and recognize I'm the head of the office, a junior employee who maybe has a problem like that really is taking a risk. They really don't know what type of reaction they're going to get. They may think they know me and they think I know what I do, but they've also been around a lot of other people who they thought represented one thing, and then they came in and brought a problem and the person used it to end their career, and they've heard this from other people. So no, to answer your question, I don't think that many people have ever come forward. But here's what I do know. I know when they come in and they say to me that my brother just committed suicide, or my mother's got cancer and I need to take some time off, or these various other things. Those then present opportunities for me to ask them to sit down and close the door, and then to say, I'm really sorry what you're going through. Is there anything I can do to help? And then after they usually say no, I can then offer and say, but could you tell me your brother's name or your mother's name, because I'd like to pray for them, and if you don't mind, I'll do that right now. And almost every occasion they say, I'd love that, and then we do. And then it allows me then to follow up with them after that.
How do you handle work-life balance? It's hard enough being a high-level executive and having all the travel and all the responsibilities that go along with that. How do you balance that with time that you spend with your family?
The first things is my wife and I, some of the things that we have an understanding is that I will always be home for important family events, no matter what they are or where they are. Two, I've tried to fight part of the culture of the business that we're in, which is, it's very, very common in our line of work where people just stay and work every night until 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night and then go home, even if they don't need to be there. It's a FaceTime type thing. Many people are productive and they're there till 10 o'clock at night. Many people are not productive and they're there till 10 o'clock at night. I will frequently leave the office by 6:30, and the young people that we're leaving behind who are generating the paperwork or the reports or whatever that we're waiting for, I'll just tell them, I'll say, email it to me at home, and then go home, because somewhere between 6:30 and 8 o'clock, we'll have dinner, the kids will be on their way to bed, and I'll go back and check my computer and I'll read what you've done and I'll send my edits back to you, and the person may stay at home and work on it, they may go back to the office and work on it, I really don't care. And because everyone's got a home computer in our business now and a BlackBerry, so we can send all this stuff around. But some of our other businesses that we have, the culture is very different, and instead everyone is sitting there in the office balancing their checkbook or surfing the net or wherever, while, the junior guy is down at the computer, typing out whatever the report is, and then they all come together and they look at it again. There's a lot of different ways to execute the task. Some of them, it's hard for me to think that doing something I think is logically is the way I'm doing it is progressive, but in today's culture it is very progressive. But just that little extra time at home with my family. When I'm traveling, making sure I'm home for important events is really important. Outside of that, it's probably the most difficult thing I think I have to deal with is dealing with the guilt of being away. But it's the work I'm called to. It's better than being in the Army. At least I come home every week.
That's a good point. And I want to end this with you elaborating on what you just said, that you were called to this. Can you elaborate on exactly what you mean by that? Do you think that we are, in fact, called to minister in the business world?
I think that we are. One of my favorite examples I like to use is out of Proverbs 30. It talks about the 4 animals that are wise in the sight of the Lord. And if I recall, it's the ant, it's the rock badger, it's the locust, and then the last one is the lizard. And it mentions about the lizard, it says that, I think the version I'm quoting from is maybe the New Living, but it says that he's small, he can be grasped with both hands and thrown out the window, but at night he sleeps in the palace with the king. And it raises this picture in your mind of you know, big iguana, you know, crawling up the wall and going in the window and getting into the bed with the king at night when it's cold. But you know, every billionaire businessman out there has got a banker, and they have very elaborate security. There's, you know, walls of people around them that you can't get through. If you were to want to go see some of my clients, you could never get to them. I'm sure if some of your clients, if I wanted to go see them, I couldn't get to them. But the fact is I can get through all those gates and get to see some of these people, and I may be the only person that they ever come in contact with who's, you know, bearing the Spirit of God with them, you know, and is able to relate to them and to, you know, be there with them in their time of need and when they are questioning or making very difficult decisions. I can't, some of the clients that I deal with are some of the most powerful and influential people that I think are in the state or in our country, and I know how difficult my life is. I know having money makes absolutely no difference whatsoever in the anxieties you go home with every day, and the guilts that you feel or the challenges that you have to deal with. You know, when you spend the day, you know, peeling two secretaries off each other who hate each other, or things like that. You know, or you're sick at your stomach because you've got to let an employee go who just can't cut it. Things like that. You know, dealing with people's personal problems. You know, that you realize it's going to be very messy dealing with this. God has indeed called us and put us here to be there. If I can influence one business leader like that who has 50,000 employees, that one seed or event or helping them make a decision could spread itself down to, you know, exponentially. And I think that's how God calls us to be there, to work for Him like that, to be available for that. So that's where I see that my role is. I enjoy what I do, and I'm glad that I have this ability to do that.
What a perfect place to end this interview. It's been a true pleasure talking with you. I think we've got some great examples and information, and that it is seeds that we can plant with people who are coming up after us. Thank you very much for being here. It's a true pleasure.